Hey there, and welcome to the Apartment Building Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Blanc. I'm really excited that you're here. On the show today, I have Danny Woodford. I've been tracking him for several months. He's a really kind of a quiet guy, former Pentagon military, super successful. Has done hundreds, close to 1,000 units, and is doing some really, really exciting stuff. And I wanted him to share with you his journey, which so for many of us started with single-family houses before he saw the light, and he got into multifamily. And what I really like about this interview, he really talks about how people can break into the business, build a resume by partnering. And we talk quite a bit about, towards the end of the episode, of how people can actually do that. How can they start partnering with more experienced people and tactics and strategies they can use for that. So let's get right into the interview with Danny Woodford. Here we go. Hey, Danny, welcome to the show today.
Michael, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Tell us a little, just to give us a little intro to yourself before we dive into your story.
Yeah, so Daniel Woodford. I'm with Mission Bay Investments, and we're a multifamily investor here in the Mid-Atlantic in the Southeast, and we also are looking at Texas, or actually in Texas. We like value-add type opportunities, 100 units and above. That's kind of what we look at. And we're aggressively sourcing deals right now, and now we're also opening up an arm of where we're sourcing capital. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now.
Well, you're doing some very exciting things, and I look forward to getting into that. Let's just, just rewind the clock a little bit here and think back to your Pentagon days. And, why did you get started with real estate in the first place? What was going on in your life where you kind of were scratching your head going, hey, I gotta change something?
Yeah. So, I mean, going back then, I was, I just moved here to Virginia in 2009. I got stationed at the Pentagon, and individuals that are in the military, it's a little difficult to live as close as you can to DC. It's, the pricing is a little difficult. So we were about, 35, 40 miles away. It took me 2 hours to get to the Pentagon from seat to seat. That was not fun. And that was every day for about 4.5 years. But even before that, I was in Los Angeles, so at Los Angeles Air Force Base. And we lived 75 miles away from the base at that point. I traveled into LA every day in LA traffic. So I went from LA traffic to DC traffic. Neither one are fun. 2.5 hours there, or 2 hours to the base in LA, and then 2 hours at least back home. And I was just missing a lot of time. A lot of time on the road, missing a lot of time with my family. And that's when I kind of got to the point where I knew I wanted to retire from the military. I really was enjoying what I was doing, a very fulfilling part of my life, but didn't really have control of my time, didn't really have, complete control of whether I could spend the time with my family or not. Big events, there were some big events that really were, dear to me that I missed because of this. And so, about 4 or 5 years out, I knew I was going to retire. About 4 or 5 years out, I decided, I got to do something different. I've got to figure out something where, because I could have, retired, gotten out, and did what a lot of military folks do, go back, work for a government contractor. I was in the space field, so I could have done the same thing here in DC, but it's just not something that I wanted to do. And so, about 4 or 5 years out, my wife and I, we put a plan together, nights and weekends. And the times when I'm commuting, like on the bus or on the train or whatever, I'm constantly reading, listening to podcasts, getting any calls that I can get into whoever I need to talk to on my team and my network. And from nights and weekends, we just decided, we got to put a plan together to kind of replace my income as quickly as possible, so that when I got to the point when I could retire from the military, that, I didn't have to go back and get back into the, let's call it, the rat race, so to speak. And so that's kind of what we did.
Yeah, it's interesting. So a few things that you mentioned. One is it was your wife and you. So you guys were kind of sat there and you talked about it. That's really important. And then people always say, how can you do this with a full-time job? And you just mentioned, hey, you got to sit down, you got to make it a priority, and you did nights and weekends.
Nights and weekends.
Nights and weekends.
Really, it's what it was. Yeah. We started off with single families in Baltimore. We were doing fix and flips. We were doing fix up to hold as rentals, so we could create that passive income. And it was like every Saturday, every Sunday, I was in Baltimore. And in the evenings when I'm coming home from on the bus, I'm trying to make calls to brokers, to realtors, to contractors, and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of how we did it.
Yeah, that's a challenging thing to do. And you live in Northern Virginia, where I do, and Baltimore is, while relatively close, it's really not that close. You have a lot of traffic there. Depending on where you are in Baltimore, it may not be the most pleasant place to be at. We flipped a few homes there as well, so it's definitely a challenge. A lot of people think it's, I don't have the time. I don't, it's not possible. And you clearly demonstrated it is. So you were thinking real estate passive income, and you did single family houses. What did you do in single family houses? What was kind of your initial plan there?
Well, really was to kind of build a portfolio of single family on our way that way. And part of the plan was to do our fix, and we call them retail sale type opportunities, where we'd fix them up, sell them, use that capital, bring it into the fix and repair for our rentals. And so we were continually to build our rental portfolio in that regard.
Yeah, so you were doing a lot of single-family house at the time. At what point did you decide that you were going to do something bigger? What was going on there? Why did you decide to look at something bigger?
Yeah, so as we were doing these single-family houses, there was actually a seminar, and I thought that I wanted to grow that business. And it was a single-family housing seminar, and we went to the seminar and realized that we didn't know if we were learning anything more than we had already known. And I asked a person next to me, I said, hey, are you going to get involved with, the next step? And the person said, well, actually, I think I'd rather look at multifamily. So that's kind of what we did. We said, oh, okay, well, maybe we'll look at that. And that's really, it made sense, to go from the single family houses. And we always kind of thought we wanted to go multifamily, but that kind of was the stepping stone to kind of, get in. So that's kind of how we kind of moved over.
Yeah, why did you think it was a necessary next step? Why were you guys talking about that at that point? What were you trying to achieve that you felt you couldn't do with the single family house stuff?
Well, I thought single families were good, but multifamilies just offered a little bit more with regards to obviously efficiency, efficiencies that you have, of scales and that type of thing. The financing is certainly, more attractive. And that's probably another aspect, as we got further and further along with our single families, and we're doing this, all on our own personal credit, it gets to the point where all of a sudden, you get tapped out. But when you're looking at multifamily, there's multiple ways you can structure it. It's non-recourse lending. And one of the things that I realized, early on, which was kind of an aha type of moment, was, wait a minute, I can use the exact same, they call it pot of money, to buy this multifamily with non-recourse lending, and then that exact same pot of money, I can buy another one, and I'm not really depleting my funds as much. And so that's kind of how we kind of, one of the things we did.
But one of the major concerns that people have in getting multifamily is they don't have the capital to do that. Now, it sounds like you maybe had some capital from the single family house business to put into your first deal. Talk a little bit about your concern about capital.
Well, we've always had a concern from capital, and so we've always been, the type of company that would go out and look to raise money. And so even though we had, some capital of our own, we still went out and tried to bring in investors as we could. So.
What did that look like for you? At what point did you start raising money? Did you start doing that for some of your single-family houses? Did you start doing it at multifamily? At what point? Talk about that as you got started raising money. What was that like?
So yeah, we definitely were raising money for single families. So it was my partner and I, Chuck Triska. We raised capital for that operation, and then as we transitioned over into multifamily, we found it was a pretty easy transition to move those investors into this new venture that we were doing, and so we were able to take those folks over, and then as we continued to have success with multifamily, obviously we just grew our investor base from there.
All right, so there was a 40-unit deal. Can you talk a little bit more about that deal? What due diligence was like, what kind of opportunity it was. What else can you share about that deal?
Yeah, so 40 units. It was certainly had a value add component to it. It was kind of a dated property. It needed upgraded cabinets, fixtures, flooring, and that type of thing. And to be quite honest, we didn't even get started into the value add part of it all that well before we actually sold the property. We were actually able, to ride that market a little bit, and we actually sold that property within it was under 2 years.
So you were executing the plan,
Uh-huh.
and you sold it because someone made you an offer, or you just listed it, or what happened?
No, we sold it. Someone made us the same broker found us a buyer for it, made us an offer, and he actually ended up bringing another deal to us right behind this. So we ended up doing a 1031 exchange. But yeah, so that's the broker found us a buyer on that.
All right, so this is pretty cool. So can you share a little bit of what you bought the property for, and what the value add was, like how you increased rents, or what you did to the NOI, and then what you sold it for?
Yeah. So this property, we bought it for $1.1 million. We did some exterior work on the exterior. There was some painting that we needed to do and that type of thing. But we really didn't get to the interior as much. We did some of the electrical work. We changed we changed the electrical panels out. So we kind of did some of the necessary stuff up front. And we did the parking lot, we did fencing, and we did some of the necessary stuff up front. And as we were getting to the interiors, that's when we got the offer. But yeah, that's kind of where we were.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So you sold it for a 1031 exchange. Can you talk a little bit about 1031 exchanges and what the benefit of that is?
Yeah, so 1031 exchange is a rule, IRS rule, that allows you to exchange your basically your profits in a piece of real estate into a lifetime another piece of real estate, and defer your taxes in doing so. And so we were able to do that. Like I said, we bought that 40 unit at 1.1 million. We sold it for right at 1.5 million, and we moved those profits immediately into a 98 unit in Richmond. We moved up, and that one was a $5.8 million purchase.
And at one point, were you raising money for both of these deals?
So the first deal, the 40 unit, was basically done in-house. Well, we had one investor, basically. It was myself and my partner and one other investor. So we basically did it in-house. The next deal, the 98 unit, we actually did a syndication. That was so we did a syndication on that deal. We raised it was right at $2 million for that deal.
That is amazing. That's amazing to go from that within 2 years. And tell me a little bit about that 98 unit. What's the deal with that?
So we still have that property. It's a 98 unit. A value add. Again, this was kind of a great area of Richmond. It's in Henrico County, which is, one of the better counties in Richmond, the Richmond area. And, interiors need to be redone. It's a little heavier lift, but we saw that the rents were, at least $100 below market. And so we actually started our value add program there. We've gotten, I think, 14 done at this point. And we actually got another offer on that deal. And then there's another, so this one, we may even sell this one also, but we're also looking at refinance too. So we're kind of determine what we're going to do here.
That's fine. What did you do after? What have you done since these two deals, Danny?
So since these two deals, we've kind of, our business kind of really started to take off a little bit. We moved immediately into a 211 unit deal in Georgia. We did a 104 unit deal in Texas. We just closed a 251 unit deal in Winston-Salem. And we've got two other deals under contract currently. One's in Tyler, Texas, and one's in Memphis.
That is fabulous. A lot of people are saying, it's impossible to find a deal right now, and I'd rather wait till, something happens and I'll buy on the back end of that. What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, we just don't know what, I think that the market is kind of, at the later stages, but if you buy it right, I mean, there's still deals out there, right? And you got to, if you buy the right value add opportunity, there's still deals out there. So we're still aggressively looking.
Now, why do you think you're doing deals when some other people are basically saying there's nothing out there?
Well, we are actually finding deals. I mean, we do scrutinize, underwrite it, scrutinize it as much as we can. I mean, we're very selective on what we take on. We are very conservative with our underwriting right now, but we're still finding deals that we can still provide a good return for our investors.
Yeah, and it's clearly, once you do your first deal, things get easier. Is that your kind of your observations as well? Could that be one of the big differences of someone who says they're not finding deals versus someone who's maybe done a few?
Yeah, I think that is the case. I think one of the things that is probably understated is really having that resume, right? Because that's when brokers start bringing you stuff. That's when other investors start coming to you and asking to be a part of the deal. And so, and that's when lenders start really, paying attention real well. So I can't understate that. The resume is really, really important.
Yeah, clearly. And let's talk about partnerships real quickly, because partnerships have been key to what we've done. And I know you're doing the same thing. I know you're working with one of our students on one deal. And this is certainly one area we've started growing our capacity to raise money, not just increasing the number of investors that we have, but bringing people into the fold that have the capacity to also raise additional money. Talk a bit more how that's working for you in your business.
So yeah, that's always been a part of our business. We always are networking for individuals that not just for individual investors, but for individuals that are able to raise capital, have contacts, and that type of thing, and are confident they can raise capital. So yeah, we've always done that.
I describe a little bit how that works for people that may not be familiar. I've talked about it on a previous show to some degree, but talk about how that works, and and how someone might be able to get involved in something like that.
Yeah, so basically the way the SEC rules work is, if you bring somebody in that raises capital for you, if they're successful in raising capital, you got to bring them into the deal, right? And so anybody who raises capital for us is brought into the management team with us. It gives two things. It compensates them for their efforts, and they're part of the management team also. But also it's appealing to some of the investors because that helps to put something on their resume. So,
you know what, it creates real opportunity for people. And what I'm noticing is that people come through the ranks through these different, they educate themselves just like the syndicator does, but they gravitate towards the money raising part of things. And it creates a similar opportunity for people that, don't prefer calling brokers or analyzing deals, but they do like the idea of networking and raising money. And I see more and more of that. And there's a need for people like that as well. And I've also even noticed with some of our students, Christine being one of them, but there's several others that kind of struggle with the regular syndicator. There's like putting a square peg in a round hole. And when you talk about what are you really good at, I'm more of a relationship person. I really like talking to people. You're like, why don't you use the skills and what you've learned and actually use that to raise money, and then, work with Danny or people like you and I and raise the money for that. And people are doing that with great success. And I find it just creates great opportunity for them. And it's not many times an exclusive arrangement. It's wherever the deal is, right? So you find a deal, I find a deal, so-and-so finds a deal, and they're raising money, and they're doing one deal every other month, for example. And that's fabulous. And so it creates a lot of opportunity. So it's great that you're doing that as well. So what's kind of next for you?
Well, like I said, the next thing for us is we're going to focus I won't say exclusively, we're going to focus on raising capital. That's the biggest thing, because we're starting to source deals. It's still a difficult market to source deals. I won't say I don't want to make it sound like it's easy, but I think that we're at the point where we need to really start sourcing capital so we can kind of meet that demand.
Well, that's right. You're finding a lot of deals, and so you have a huge need for capital. Absolutely. Now, what do you advise? So, at what point, by the way, now you were retired by the time you got started with multifamilies, right? Is that right?
Well, I retired right at that point when I started. Yeah, about the same time.
Were you able to kind of did you kind of achieve your financial goals with the single family houses and the multifamily? At what point did that happen for you, and what was that feeling like for you?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I've even achieved my goals yet, but I felt comfortable enough with when I retired from the military with and what we were getting ready to do with multifamilies that I felt comfortable enough that I could retire and focus focus exclusively on multifamily.
So, and what does your wife think about all this stuff? Is she kind of think you're crazy in the beginning? Is she supportive? Did she come around a little bit? How does she feel about what Danny's doing?
Yeah, she's always been supportive. Always been supportive. So I mean, so yeah, I must admit she's always been there. So.
That's fabulous. It's a huge help. All right, now let's you're sitting across having coffee with someone, and they want to do what you've done. They want to replace their income with passive income. What is your advice to them on how to get started and become successful?
If I look back, one of the things I found that had helped me along was, again, the resume aspect of it. I would go out and partner with someone that had the resume. That's what I would do, and I would bring either capital to the table, or I'd bring a deal to the table, and we would partner with that regard. And that way continue to build my resume to the point that I could actually start doing it on my own. And on top of that, I don't think I would have started with single families, to be quite honest. I would have gone straight to what we're doing right now in the multifamily, 100 units or above, because I mean it is a little bit different, but at the same time, I mean, it just requires a little bit of a different type of education. It's no different than going to college, right? So that's kind of where I was.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because that's kind of where people object, right? And people kind of intellectually kind of agree with that statement, but they view single family house as a stepping stone. Get some experience, and then they will roll the money into multifamily. Now, when you say let's skip the single family house, people kind of go, wait a minute, you're skipping a couple steps here. Now you don't have experience, you don't have the capital. You're telling me I can fix both with education. What do you mean?
Well, so education as well as partnership. And there's going to be a key. I mean, if you want to start in multifamily, I would say education and partner with someone who's done it, right? But that's the way I found for me to get to where I am a little bit faster than typical, right?
All right, you talked about building a resume with partnering, either by bringing the deal or bringing the money. So let's pick one of the two. Let's say, okay, I hear you, Danny. I want to bring you the deal. What does that look like? What would I have to do to be able to partner with you so I can build my resume?
Yeah. So bringing the deal obviously entails, doing your homework on the project, underwriting it, building the broker relationships that you need to, obviously, before that. Once that is done, then you're presenting it. You're presenting it to myself or somebody like me as a full-up package, as an investment opportunity. And so I'm going to evaluate it, make sure that it hits the numbers that I'm looking for to hit. And then at that point, we're going to partner up. I'm going to offer to bring the capital to the deal. I'll offer to bring the financing to the deal, and then we'll marry it that way.
So I send you a marketing package. Said, Danny, I found a deal. What do you think? Do you want to see that, or do you want to see something else?
Well, I like to see. So what I like to see is a little more on the underwriting side of it. I like to see where a deal has actually been analyzed and underwritten in a 5-year or 10-year pro forma. So I can see what the cash on cash is. I can see what the average annual returns are, what the internal rate of return is. Those type of metrics I like to see before I determine whether I even want to move forward with a deal or not.
All right, great. So I find a deal, I analyze it, and I send it to you with my analysis. Is that good enough for you, or what comes next in that discussion?
So yeah, that's, I mean, once I do my initial underwriting, I'll look at it. We'll look at it with my team. If it's something that we want to move forward with, then we would get back with that investor. We would say, hey, this is something we want to proceed with you. We would identify everybody's roles and responsibilities. Typically, ours is obviously going to be to sign for the financing and to assist with, and maybe even just bring all of the capital to the deal. And the investor would be part of the management team with us, and would be a part of the asset management of that property after the purchase and throughout the whole period.
All right. So it clearly, when someone sends you a deal, they're not sending you the marketing package off LoopNet. They're not really adding a lot of value, is my sense. And I see a lot of that. They'll send me a marketing package. Hey, Michael, here's a deal. And it's like a deal that's listed by, CBRE or, there's no, I'm looking for underwriting, some amount of analysis and research, and some amount of, I would say, almost control you know, or relationship with a seller or the broker that gives them any advantage of that, right? So,
Sure.
you know, it just aggravates me to no end when people do that, and it's I just find that people just don't really understand what's required, and you know, are not really respectful of people's time. And just advice for people who want to find deals is go find the deals, analyze it, and do the research behind it, pre-negotiate the deal, and then deliver that to you. And then you're going to go,
that's right.
This is fantastic. I love this so much. Yeah.
It makes it move a lot faster. That's for sure.
It really does.
If you just get a package, you know, that's something that I'm not going to have time to really evaluate, you know, so.
Let's talk about the money raising side. So again, the education, in my opinion, what I've seen is the same, whether someone wants to find the deals or raise the money. If you're a money raiser, you still have to know about multifamily. You still have to know about all aspects of it, because you have to seem credible to your investors. You have to know what the heck you're talking about, and you're fielding the calls, right? So people grow up and they take these seminars and boot camps, and then they tend to gravitate, I'd say about 60-70% gravitate towards the deal finding side, the syndication side, and then 30% tend to gravitate towards the money raising side. And a lot of people actually don't know that's an option, and as we talk about here, it is an option. Now, if someone wants to raise money for you, how does that relationship start? What do you look for there, and how does that start working?
So yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the person that's raising money is going out and talking to their investors about our deal. Obviously, I've got to, you know, educate them on the deal, and then typically it's, you know, they're educating them on the deal, or they're bringing that investor to me so that I can kind of go over the deal structure with them. And so go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. So so, what are you looking for in that money raiser? Are you looking for previous experience, or are you looking for? I mean, what are you looking for? If someone says, "Hey, Danny, I want to work with you. I want to raise $400,000." You can say, I mean, how do you handle that person?
Well, so I mean, there's a couple things I look for when I'm dealing with individuals that want to raise money, because it's really critical, because, you know, when you get down, I've been to deals where I've gotten down to the last day, and individuals that say they're going to bring money didn't bring the money, and now you end up scrambling to get the deal closed. So yeah, it's really important that someone is really serious. They've got to have the education. I really want them to understand the education part of it. But they also have to have, you know, it's kind of a cliche, but a reason why they're doing it. Because anybody can say, but when it gets down to it, it takes some work. You got to interface with various different people. It takes more than one interface. Sometimes people say they're going to do it and they don't. Sometimes, you know, you can get it raised fairly quickly, but, you know, that's, you know, it takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, it does. It does. And it's from my perspective, because we have similar, you know, conversations with people, and the education is key. The drive has got to be key. We love, you know, people who have raised money before, because we found the same thing. People say, we think they can raise $500,000. Actually, at the end of the day, cannot, because they haven't properly engaged the investor. And so that creates that strain, that stress at the very end. So we normally, if we're going to do it, might have 2 or 3 money raisers in there. So if someone falls short, maybe we have someone that can pick up the slack. On the other hand, we found that people who can raise some amount of money, $200,000-$300,000 first time around, all of a sudden become much better at raising money, right? So you know, Christine raising $500,000-$600,000 for this deal, well, she's going to raise $1 million plus for the next deal, and $2 million plus for the next deal. So it's kind of like this ramp up curve, and so. But we are finding that it is challenging to get people over that first deal hump, which again, that first deal is so important. And once you know that person has that first deal, it's game over. And getting that person there is key, and the education, frankly, is key. And like you said, the drive is key as well. And then hedging from your side, right? If that person falls short, can I still close this deal? What can I do there? Yeah, that's awesome. This is great. I really like your suggestions about how people can get started by partnering to build your resume. Yeah, this is great. So, Danny, how can people connect with you?
I can call or email. My phone number is 661-816-0335, and my email is daniel@missionbayinvestments.com.
Well, that's fabulous, Danny. I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your insights and your experience here with everybody. Again, especially about how people can break in, build a resume partnering. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much for sticking around to the end of the video. I want to leave you with 3 next things to do. I'll give you a quick tour of those, and I'll tell you how to do them. Step number 1 is to download my free ebook, The Secret to Raising Money to Buy Your First Apartment Building Deal. It is an awesome ebook full of tips for raising money and how to do that. So that's number 1. Number 2 is to subscribe to my YouTube channel because I put out new videos all the time, and I'd hate for you to miss it. And number 3 is to watch the next video in line. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to click on the first thing, which is to download the ebook. That'll open up a new tab. The video will stop playing. You're going to get the ebook, and then go back to this video, and then click on number 2, right, which is to subscribe on the channel. That'll open a new tab, and then you can go back to the third one and just click on the next video in line. All right, so hope you find that helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.